This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, August 12th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Harris in Vegas and Trump in Montana, the latest on the race to the White House. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
President Biden is talking about his decision to leave the presidential race.
He's a genuine danger to American security.
I'm Clayton Neville.
A cyber hack orchestrated against the Trump campaign. Will have the details and the implications.
A Ferguson police officer is suffering from a brain injury after a protest turned violent. I'm Jackie Quinn.
On Wall Street, stocks start this new week of trading almost where they started last Monday. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Hamas says don't save them a seat at peace talks, and the U.S. ramps up its Middle East military presence.
There will be at least one debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Ed Donahue, Washington.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump were on the campaign trail out west, with conversations over crowd size taking center stage. John Stolnis has that story from Washington.
On Saturday, Harris spoke to more than 12,000 people in Las Vegas.
You are battle-born. You are battle-born. And if Donald Trump wants to pick a fight over our most fundamental freedoms, we say, bring it on.
The Harris campaign says 15,000 turned out for an appearance in Detroit last week. On Truth Social over the weekend, Trump claimed the Harris campaign was using AI photoshopped pictures to make their crowds look bigger than they were. Harris's running mate, Governor Tim Walz, told the 15,000 people at his speech on Friday night in Arizona,
"It's not as if anybody cares about crowd sizes or anything."
Trump was also on the West Coast, speaking in Bozeman, Montana on Friday night, his first official campaign event since Governor Walz was picked to be Harris's running mate.
Then he said, I think J.D. Vance is weird. It's a word that they use. I think he calls me that too. No, we're not. We're very solid people. We want to have strong borders. We want to have good elections. We want to have low interest rates. We want to be able to buy a house. We want great education.
Over the weekend, the New York Times cited two people who claimed they heard Trump call Vice President Harris the B word during at least two private conversations. A Trump campaign spokesman said, quote, "That is not language President Trump has used to describe Kamala, and it's not how the campaign would characterize her." Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, made the rounds on 3 Sunday shows, defending his childless cat lady's comment on CNN's State of the Union.
"I criticized Kamala Harris for being part of a set of ideas that exists in American leadership that is anti-family. I never, Dana, criticized people for not having kids. I criticized people for being anti-child." And Donald Trump's meeting last week with self-avowed white supremacist Nick Fuentes on ABC's This Week. President Trump has issued plenty of condemnations on this. The one thing that the one thing I like about Donald Trump, John, is that he actually will talk to anybody, but just because you talk to somebody doesn't mean you endorse their views. And look, Donald Trump spent a lot of quality time with my wife. Every time he sees her, he gives her a hug, tells her she's beautiful, and jokes around with her a little bit. Vance also defended recent comments by Trump that the Federal Reserve should transfer some monetary policy power over to the president. John Stolnis, Washington.
President Biden has given his first interview since dropping out of the 2024 presidential race. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
President Biden explained that the decision to drop out of the presidential race and endorse Vice President Kamala Harris for the presidency with CBS News Sunday morning.
What happened was a number of my Democratic colleagues in the House and Senate thought that I was going to hurt them in the races. And I was concerned if I stayed in the race, that would be the topic.
He said Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, have his full support.
I talk to her frequently, and by the way, I've known her running mate is a great guy. As we say, if we grew up in the same neighborhood, we'd have been friends. He's my kind of guy.
President Biden also went after Harris's opponent, former President Donald Trump, warning of what he called the dangers of another Trump presidency.
If he wins this this election, watch what happens. It's a danger. He's a genuine danger to American security.
The president was asked by CBS about his thoughts on the legacy of his administration.
That he proved democracy can work. It got us out of a pandemic. It produced the single greatest economic recovery in American history. We're the most powerful economy in the world. We have more to do. and it demonstrated that we can pull the nation together.
An end to a long and accomplished political career, but the president still in the Oval Office, of course, for another 5 months. I'm Clayton Neville.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. It's Sleep Number's biggest sale of the year. Save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com. Crowd turns on cop, now fighting for his life, when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Cool down for some, showers for others today. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy has the nation's forecast.
Much of the northern plains into the Great Lakes and Northeast will continue with comfortable weather. Overall, we'll have a varied mixture of clouds and sun covering the region. There will be a weak area of low pressure moving through the Northeast, which will produce a few showers and thunderstorms through New York into northern Pennsylvania and New England. Afternoon highs in the area will be mostly in the 60s and 70s, which is about 5 to 10 degrees below the historical average. A few more scattered showers will develop in the afternoon in parts of Minnesota into Wisconsin as well, but with more sunshine. Highs will be in the 70s and 80s. In the Central Plains, there'll be an area of showers and thunderstorms moving eastward from eastern Nebraska and Iowa, southward to northeast Oklahoma, and then continuing eastward through northern Arkansas into Illinois and even Indiana. A few of the storms could produce drenching rainfall in Missouri with some localized flooding possible. Meanwhile, another area of showers and thunderstorms will develop along a lingering boundary in the southeast into Florida. A few of these storms could produce drenching rainfall near the coasts of North and South Carolina. And the main concern for gusty thunderstorms will once again develop late today in the Rockies and then shift eastward into the western plains from southern Wyoming into northern New Mexico and then toward western Nebraska into Kansas and even North Texas. A few of these storms could cause damaging winds and flash flooding. Scattered afternoon thunderstorms will also form in the rest of the mountain regions from Arizona and New Mexico into Utah, as well as Idaho and Montana. That's the weather across America. Des Moines, Iowa will have plenty of clouds today with a few showers, especially early. It'll be a cool day with a high of 70. Palmdale, California will see plenty of sunshine today with a warm afternoon and a high of 98. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Don't forget you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. It's starting to sound like 2016 all over again. Politico and the Washington Post are reporting they've both received a 271-page document from an anonymous AOL account containing an internal vetting document from Donald Trump's campaign. Trump's team is pointing the finger of blame at Iran over claims it was informed by Microsoft that one of its websites was hacked by the Iranian government. Since 2016, campaigns have put an emphasis on enhanced security measures after then-candidate Hillary Clinton's emails were hacked by Russia. Last month, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence put out a warning saying Russia, China, and Iran were all likely to attempt to interfere and try to destabilize the 2024 election. America in the Morning continues. Following protests marking the 10-year anniversary of the death of a teenager in Ferguson, Missouri following a police shooting, we now have a police officer fighting for his life. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports the officer was attacked as he attempted to make an arrest.
There have been commemorative protests in Ferguson, Missouri this past week, marking the 10th anniversary of the police killing of Michael Brown, an unarmed black teen. Police Chief Troy Doyle ordered arrests when protesters started damaging police headquarters.
Sure ain't gonna allow you to destroy this city.
Someone pushed Officer Travis Brown to the ground, his head slamming on the pavement. Chief Doyle on KMOV-TV says the department has made significant changes. More than half its officers are black.
I don't know why the officers here, who wasn't even here in 2014, have to continue to suffer through this.
A local civil rights leader is warning the community against renewing racial divide after a social media post celebrated the officer who fatally shot Michael Brown. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Markets open today with a reminder of last week's meltdown And gas prices take a turn. We'll have those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. With the Monday Report, here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after stocks took that big plunge a week ago today. But by Friday, the S&P had clawed back those losses. So we start over again. Job cuts making some headlines. So much attention is being paid to the labor market and whether it's really slowing. Stellantis is ending production of the Ram Classic pickup truck and says it's cutting nearly 2,500 plant workers. Cisco reportedly getting ready to cut thousands. And Paramount Global says it will cut thousands. It owns the Paramount Movie Studio, CBS Television, Showtime, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, and more, plus the Paramount Global streaming service.
This announcement that it's cutting 15% of its staff speaks to media's struggles right now. Now, Paramount surprised profitability in its streaming division, reassuring investors that they are on track to close their Skydance deal and that the combined new company will find an additional $1.5 billion in savings. Now, all of this speaks to the challenge of competing with Netflix, which surged past expectations, not bogged down by any legacy businesses.
CNBC's Julia Borston, taking a page out of the fast food chain playbook. Applebee's, Chili's, Outback, and P.F. Chang's, those are fast casual restaurants. They're now adding value items to their menus. At privately held P.F. Chang's, it's a $5 happy hour deal, $5 drinks and snacks.
Here you can get a nice drink, you can get better quality food, and it's going to be honestly cheaper than McDonald's.
That customer spoke with NBC at an L.A. location of P.F. Chang's.
Word at the pump is gas prices may have stopped rising, at least temporarily.
Gas prices have likely peaked for the summer, and Gas Buddy says there's been a notable drop in demand. Prices will drop even more in about 5 weeks when refiners switch to less expensive winter blend gas and gas stations are allowed to sell it. Oh, and there's plenty of oil.
The U.S. retains the crown of the world's largest oil producer. Oil production in the U.S. is at record-setting levels.
Gas Buddy's Patrick DeHaan on NBC. Americans also bought a record number of electric vehicles in the last quarter as more affordable models are coming on the market. On today's watch list, no big economic reports. Investors are on hold for the latest on inflation. That comes day after tomorrow. That'll be the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. Also later this week, we get new numbers on retail sales for July and more data on the housing market. As mortgage rates heading into the weekend, we're hovering around 6.5%, according to Mortgage News Daily.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with Monday Business. Hamas pulls out of ceasefire talks. U.S. readies carrier strike group. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The terrorist group Hamas announced that it will not take part in ceasefire talks scheduled for Thursday after the assassination of their political chief, which it blames on Israel, but its new leader said he wants a ceasefire deal. Correspondent Donna Warder reports the U.S. and other mediators in the Middle East are calling for the resuming of those talks on the war in Gaza.
The leaders of the United States, Egypt, and Qatar have jointly issued a statement demanding that Israel and Hamas return to stalled talks on the war in Gaza. The statement says only the details of carrying out a ceasefire and hostage release remain to be negotiated, and that there is no further time to waste nor excuses from any party for further delay. On Thursday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said that on August 15th, Israel would send the negotiations team to a place still to be determined in order to finalize the details and implementation of a framework agreement. Critics of Netanyahu have accused him of slow-rolling the talks. Donna Warder, Washington.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has ordered a guided missile submarine to the Middle East, and it's telling the USS Abraham Lincoln Aircraft Carrier Strike Group to sail more quickly to the area. The U.S. and other allies believe both Iran and Hezbollah are planning for attacks against Israel sometime this week as fighting continues and the death toll grows in Gaza. We could get our fill of presidential debates next month and then some. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
ABC News says both sides have agreed to debate September 10th. Fox News has also proposed a debate on September 4th, and NBC News is looking for a September 25th debate. Speaking at his Florida resort, Trump says details still need to be worked out.
Audience, some location, which city would we put it into, but all things that will be settled very easily, I think it'll be very easy. The other side has to agree to the terms.
ABC says David Muir and Lindsey Davis will moderate their debate. It's the same date that Trump and President Biden had agreed to their second and final debate before Biden dropped out of the race. Ed Donahue, Washington.
America in the Morning for Monday, August 12th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Russia and Ukraine are stepping up strikes. I'm Nayan Kim.
The Trump camp addressing reported momentum surrounding Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign. I'm Clayton Neville.
Vice President Kamala Harris pledges to help service workers make ends meet. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Disturbing audio released from the Uvalde school shooting. We'll have that. Plus,
a house explosion in Maryland leaves 2 people dead. I'm Pamela Burr.
Hackers now targeting major airline GPS systems. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
A homemade aquarium appeared in a Brooklyn tree bed, and it got complicated. I'm Ed Donahue.
And more. Stay tuned. America in the Morning, back after these messages. Welcome back, and thanks for listening. You're with America in the Morning. On the hunt for potential severe weather this Monday, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
The main concern for gusty thunderstorms today will be once again in the Rockies and then shift eastward to the western plains. They'll start out in southern Wyoming into northern New Mexico and then move eastward into western Nebraska, into Kansas, and even North Texas. A few of these storms could cause damaging winds and flash flooding. We'll also have some scattered afternoon thunderstorms through the rest of that mountain region from Arizona into New Mexico, as well as Utah, Idaho, and Montana. Much of the northern plains into the Great Lakes and Northeast will continue with comfortable weather today. There will be a weak area of low pressure moving through the Northeast, and that'll produce a few showers and thunderstorms from New York into northern Pennsylvania and New England. Afternoon highs will be mostly in the 60s and 70s, which is about 5 to 10 degrees below the historical average. And then we'll have a few more scattered showers developing in the afternoon in parts of Minnesota into Wisconsin as well. But with more sunshine, highs will be in the 70s and 80s. And then in the central plains, there's an area of showers and thunderstorms moving eastward along an area of low pressure from eastern Nebraska and Iowa into parts of northeast Oklahoma, as well as eastward through northern Arkansas into Illinois and even Indiana. A few of these storms could produce drenching rainfall in Missouri with some localized flooding possible. Another area of showers and thunderstorms will develop along a lingering frontal boundary in the southeast into Florida. A few of these storms could produce drenching rainfall near the coasts in North and South Carolina. Heading out to the west coast, it'll be a largely dry day today. We'll have plenty of sunshine and seasonable afternoon temperatures with 60s and 70s along the coast and warming into the 90s and 100s over inland areas and the deserts. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. For the first time since the war began, soldiers from Ukraine have entered Russia days after a surprise invasion that's become an embarrassing shock to the Kremlin, with videos posted on social media showing Ukraine soldiers taking down Russian flags and replacing them with Ukrainian flags. Correspondent Nayan Kim reports Ukrainian forces now control over 96 square miles of land inside Russia's borders.
Days after Russian troops were caught off guard, President Volodymyr Zelensky finally broke the government's silence on the offensive. In his nightly address, he said the operation was aimed at pushing the war out into the aggressor's territory. Moscow, meanwhile, is increasing security and deploying troops and equipment to Kursk, where the latest Ukrainian strike wounded 13 people. In Kyiv, a Russian drone and missile barrage killed a 35-year-old man and his 4-year-old son. Their bodies were found under rubble after missile fragments fell on a residential area. I'm Nayan Kim.
Former President Trump and his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, are doubling down on their confidence in their campaign for the White House as Vice President Harris and her choice for VP hit the campaign trail over the weekend. Correspondent Clayton Neville has an update.
Former President Trump recently said that vice presidential picks don't matter a whole lot to voters, leading some to speculate that Trump doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, if he were to take over the presidency. Vance addressed that idea in an interview with ABC's This Week.
Most people, 99% of the country, they don't vote on who the vice presidential nominee. They're voting for Donald Trump or for Kamala Harris, not for JD or Tim Walz, right? But what I think that he does believe, because he made it the main focus of his vetting process, is, do I think this person can be president on day one if, God forbid, something happens? Yes.
Vance also touched on some of the priorities of the campaign, including the southern border.
First thing you have to do is to stop the bleeding, stop the open border, get Kamala Harris out of there, and actually re-implement the Remain in Mexico policy, rebuild or finish Donald Trump's border wall, and you do that and you stop the bleeding.
At a rally over the weekend in Montana, Trump defended Vance.
By the way, J.D. Vance is doing a phenomenal job.
He also went after Harris's VP pick, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
He said, I think J.D. Vance is weird. It's a word that they use. I think he calls me that too. No, we're not. We're very solid people.
Republicans still ripping Walz over reports that he said he served with a gun in combat, but didn't. The Harris campaign and Democrats now insisting that Walz never claimed to have had a gun in war.
He did carry weapons. He did train just hundreds and hundreds of soldiers on how to use those weapons in war. And he made very clear that he himself was not sent into combat. That was a decision of what was going on with his unit. But in fact, he trained.
Senator Amy Klobuchar spoke with ABC News.
And I would also add, he won the sharpshooting contest in Congress when he was in Congress. He is an avid hunter, fisherman. I don't think anyone should question the fact that Tim Walz owns a gun.
Trump seemingly putting some faith behind Vance in the campaign. This week, the camp introduced a chance for supporters to win a future ride on Air Force Two with Vance. They, of course, have to donate to be in the running. I'm Clayton Neville.
As former President Trump held a rally and his VP running mate made the rounds on the Sunday shows, on the Democrat side, Vice President Harris and her VP pick hit the campaign trail, including in battleground Nevada. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports on a pledge by the Democrat presidential ticket to reduce taxes on hospitality workers, a promise recently made by Donald Trump.
We know this will be a tight race until the very end. And so let's not pay too much attention to the polls, because we have some hard work ahead of us. But we like hard work. Hard work is good work.
Vice President Kamala Harris at a rally in Las Vegas pledges to help service workers make ends meet.
When I am president, we will continue our fight for working families.
Las Vegas is a key hub in the entertainment industry. Kamala Harris vowed Saturday to help hotel and restaurant workers keep more of their paychecks,
including to raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
Matching a pledge from Republican Donald Trump, even though experts say they don't have the authority to do that without action from Congress.
If this guy gets an opportunity again, he won't only pick up where he left off, it will be much worse than it was last time.
Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, says Donald Trump really does support the conservative Project 2025 blueprint despite his denials.
When somebody draws up a playbook, they plan on using it. And when they do, they'll restrict our freedoms. When they do, they'll do what they've done. They'll rig the economy so that the middle class gets nothing and the rich get richer.
I'm Jackie Quinn.
Trump also took to his Truth Social to question the crowd sizes at recent Kamala Harris rallies, saying Sunday night the image of her Detroit event at the Wayne County Airport was AI generated, adding the creation of what he called a fake image was election interference. When we return on America in the Morning, among the stories we're covering, new concerns for airlines, GPS spoofing attacks, plus a recap of the summer games. Back after these messages. I'm John Trout. Welcome back here with America in the Morning. More than 2 years after the shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, text messages and police body cam audio and video have been released by the city. Those 911 calls made in May of 2022 paint a concerning picture of extreme panic and disarray during that shooting in which 19 students and 2 educators were killed. Correspondent Julie Walker reports one of the 911 calls was made by a student who told the emergency dispatcher that she didn't want to die.
It is a complete slap in the face. They're spitting on our children's memories by continuing to play buddy-buddy with the officers that were involved and not choose our children over said officers.
Robb Elementary School student Chloe Torres, who survived the Uvalde shooting that killed 19 students and 2 educators, begs for police in a 911 call as she cowers in a classroom with others.
Please hurry. There's a lot of dead bodies.
Telling dispatch about the dead and injured.
One of my teachers are dead. I'm there on projects, but it's for them out. Nobody wasn't even me. And help one of my teachers are still alive, but they're shot. Please, I can't wait.
Meanwhile, the shooter's uncle, Armando Ramos, begs 911 to let him try to talk his nephew down.
He could listen to me because he does listen to me.
That call came in shortly after Salvador Ramos was killed in the 2022 school massacre. Police have been criticized for waiting more than 70 minutes before confronting him. The former police chief of the Uvalde School District and another former officer are the only 2 people charged. Both pled not guilty. I'm Julie Walker.
2 people have lost their life, 12 families displaced after a Maryland house exploded. Pamela Furr has that story.
It happened around 6:40 a.m. Sunday morning in Bel Air, a town about 30 miles northeast of Baltimore. Firefighters had been called to the area after a report of the smell of gas. As they got closer, there were reports of a house explosion. State Fire Marshal Master Deputy Oliver Alkire.
I can confirm there was a gas leak. However, we're supposed to remain under investigation if it was on the interior of the house or on the exterior.
When first responders arrived on the scene, they found
2 people dead, 2 people deceased, and 1 injured, and that was the neighbor.
At least 12 families have been displaced due to damage to their homes. Alkire says 2 utility workers were in the area to work on a reported electrical issue, but he did not say if that was related to the explosion. State officials say this investigation is going to take some time, and right now they are working with the ATF to figure out exactly how this explosion happened. I'm Pamela Furr.
An Illinois sheriff is retiring after a deputy he hired was charged with murder for shooting a homeowner who called 911. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
An Illinois sheriff who hired the deputy charged in the death of Sonia Massey has announced that he will retire 5 weeks after the 36-year-old black woman was fatally shot in her Springfield home. Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell announced his retirement Friday. The 30-year-old Grayson was fired after being indicted on murder and other charges in the July 6 shooting. Grayson, who is white, has pleaded not guilty. Authorities said Massey had called 911 to report a suspected prowler. I'm Norman Hall.
Hacking is becoming all too common, and now airlines are reporting a huge increase of GPS spoofing attacks of planes in certain areas near combat zones. With more on the story in today's Tech Report, here's Chuck Palm.
Hackers have taken to breaking into GPS systems in order to create more chaos and confusion, but this time on airliners. Commercial airliners have reported a 400% surge in GPS spoofing. Many of these incidents involve illicit ground-based GPS systems around certain conflict zones, and they broadcast incorrect positions in an effort to confuse incoming drones or missiles. Cybersecurity specialist Ken Monroe, founder of Pen Test Partners, said during a presentation at the Vegas DEF CON hacking convention that the clocks tied to the GPS systems aboard airliners are what the hackers are targeting. In a Reuters interview, Monroe cited an incident in which aircraft operated by a major Western airline had its onboard clocks suddenly set forward by years, causing the plane to lose access to its digitally encrypted communication systems. Monroe also stated these incidents are not likely to cause the airliner to crash. Chime in at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
In sports, the Summer Olympics has come to an end with closing ceremonies last night. A recap of the 33rd Olympiad, Steve Futterman reports from Paris.
The Summer Olympics ended last night with fireworks atop the Stade de France Stadium, which was the home to the closing ceremony. On the final day, the U.S. caught China in the race for the most gold medals. Both nations ended up with 40. It came down to the final seconds of the final event, women's basketball. The U.S. team, looking for its 8th straight gold medal, was expected to easily beat France. It didn't work out that way. The U.S., which trailed in the second half by 10, won by just 1 point.
We respect our opponents, first and foremost, every time we get on this court, and knowing that, anytime we have an opportunity to represent USA, we have the biggest target on our back.
One of the stars of the U.S. team, Breanna Stewart.
It was a little bit ugly, but no matter what, whether it's good, ugly, whatever, we just want to come out on top. And we did that, and we go home with this gold.
While the Americans tied for the most gold medals in the overall medal competition, the U.S. was an easy winner with 126. China was second with just 91. Attention now begins to focus on Los Angeles. At last night's handover ceremony, the Olympic flag was given to L.A. Mayor Karen Bass. The opening ceremony for L.A. is set for July 14th, 2028. I'm Steve Futterman at the Summer Olympics in Paris.
When we return on America in the Morning, was it the cat? Was it a bird? The case of the missing goldfish after these messages. This is America in the Morning. An unusual contest between a husband and wife at the box office this weekend. Entertainment correspondent Kevin Carr explains.
Lady Deadpool almost stole the box office thunder from her husband.
You really are God's perfect idiot, aren't you?
The answer is yes.
Deadpool and Wolverine managed to hold on to the #1 spot for its third weekend with $54 million.
Don't just stand there, you ape. Give me a hand up. Nope. I'm actually okay, thank you very much.
That was enough to propel the threequel past the $1 billion mark worldwide, giving Disney its second billion-dollar movie of 2024 after Inside Out 2.
Can you imagine the fun, the chaos?
But it was Ryan Reynolds' wife, Blake Lively, that gave the R-rated superhero movie a run for its money.
As hard as this choice is, we break the pattern. Or the pattern breaks us.
It Ends With Us earned a staggering $50 million over the weekend. Based on the wildly popular book, the romantic drama brought out female audiences in droves.
I said if you feel it, chase it!
Summer action was still alive, with Twisters dropping only 34% for third place with $15 million.
How are we gonna get through this?
Eli Roth's colorful video game adaptation Borderlands crashed and burned in fourth place with a mere $8.8 million. That is a catastrophic start for a film that carries a reported budget of well over $100 million. Rounding out the top 5 was Illumination's Despicable Me 4 with $8 million in its 6th week. I'm Kevin Carr.
With more in Monday Morning Entertainment News, here's correspondent Margie Zaraletta.
Coming into our view beneath
That's Ali'i Carvalho singing at Disney's D23 convention in Anaheim, California over the weekend to promote the upcoming movie Moana 2. Disney announced a lot of film sequels. They include a new one for The Incredibles, Toy Story 5, Frozen 3, Zootopia 2, a new Freaky Friday, another Avatar, plus a live-action Snow White starring Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot.
Hello world, where you been?
The International Olympic Committee commissioned Anderson .Paak to create that song called Hello World in preparation for the 2028 Summer Games in Los Angeles. Paak says it was a challenge coming up with a song so specific and so clean.
I thought it was fun to play something that has no cursing and my mom could, enjoy.
I'm Archie Zaraletta.
In New York, it's the case of the missing goldfish. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports that in Brooklyn, someone created a homemade aquarium using a leaky fire hydrant in a tree bed outside a home. But now the fish are nowhere to be found.
Josh Robertson and his friends were staring at a sidewalk tree pit, often flooded by a leaky fire hydrant. They came up with the idea of a makeshift aquarium. They fortified the tree bed and bought some goldfish.
This is not animal cruelty. I'm like those are goldfish. I'm saying those are feeding fish like this. We're not feeding them to nobody.
Videos and news stories about the fish pit circulated. Max David saw them.
Unfortunately, it's kind of harmful to the fish themselves, and they refused rather aggressively, and so we pulled a bit of a rescue mission in the dead of night and took matters into our own hands.
They pulled out about 30 fish. It has sparked debate about gentrification in the historically black neighborhood. Jelani Johnson lives there.
When it comes down to it, the fish look happy and it makes other people happy too, so why change it?
Robertson says they feed the fish 3 times a day and take shifts watching over them. I'm Ed Donahue.
America in the Morning for Monday, August 12th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.